Who speaks for the black community? Again, who speaks for us? We've had civil rights leaders in the past who spoke for us, or black intellectuals who spoke for us. We had artists and literary figures and all kinds of things who spoke for us from an intelligent or introspective point of view. But who speaks for us now? Who speaks for the people now? Who does the media look at when they have a question about the black community? Who do they call on? Who do they see as a representative for us? Granted, we don't control our own narrative, but somebody else controls our own narrative. So who does the people who control our narrative call on, or who do they look at as the person who speaks for us? Because the last time I remember vividly, the person that they chose to speak for on the behalf of black people, especially when it came to politics, was Cardi B. Y'all remember that? When Biden was running for office and they chose Cardi B to run an interview, I believe, with President Biden. And she was asking him questions, and it was regarding the black community, or she was asking him questions about what he was going to do and things of that sort. And that was the closest that we got. Oh, and she was there to represent, I guess, the hip-hop community, but they associate all of the hip-hop community with the black community, which it is, but they chose, the pop side of hip-hop more so than the grassroots level of hip-hop or rap or whatever the case may be. Or I believe in their eyes that hip-hop is what speaks for us. Which, like I said, if it was a black intellectual or somebody who was introspective or both, who was a rap artist or hip-hop artist, and they could be able to dive onto that intellectual plane and ask intelligent questions that could represent us, I wouldn't be tripping. But I guess this is who the media says fits the description to represent us. And like a lot of things, I believe that does us a disservice. Who do we call on to speak for us, or who do we look at that speaks for us? Who represents us in the light? And that's the thing that I feel we need to have in place or established is a figure or multiple figures. I think that's very important. Somebody who can speak for us. Because right now, when I look at it, the only figure that represents the black community to a sense is a rap artist or a basketball player. LeBron James spoke out when Black Lives Matter popped out, and they said, "Shut up and dribble." So it's almost, they don't even want us to have anybody intellectual or anything of that sort to speak for us. We have political figures like Jasmine Crockett, but to me, if you ask me, she's almost a shucking and jiving. She's shucking and jiving and buck dancing, in order to have some kind of relevance. And I say you don't see anybody else from any other community, acting in that sort of manner to get some kind of relevance. They get their respect and reverence off of the intellect, based off of what they bring to the table, not the fanfare that circles them. So again, I said, who do we have to speak for us? Who do we have to represent us? A figure where money isn't first. A figure where being popular isn't first. Because that's the issue I have with, a lot of old civil rights leaders and things of that sort in the past. Anytime we had an issue, they'll pop out. Then they get paid, to speak, or they get paid to calm the situation down, and then they go home and nothing is ever resolved. And these companies give a payout, but guess who gets the payout? It's the person who that they called, the figurehead that they called. And nothing is ever really done, or nothing ever materializes for the victims or the people who were trespassed upon in those situations. They never see anything materialize. So who speaks for us? What political figures do we have that really has things in mind or an idea to help us? Who do we have, or who do they call on to speak for us when situations happen? Because like I said, I see a lot of political figures, but they're all for self. But then again, I sit back and I say, is it a job worth having? Is it a job worth having to be the speaking figure for the black community, when a lot of times you speak for the black community, and I'm going to keep it real, it sounds good or it works in the moment, and then it's just like church. You're holy in the church house until somebody cuts you off in the parking lot and you cuss them out, and it's back to, it's back to status quo. And I wonder, is that the same thing with, black figures? We speak and preach for the black people of the black community, and you step out here and risk your neck for them, and it sounds good and it looks good for a while until you're taken out, or you have to go somewhere, or things resolve, or things are not hype anymore, and then it's back to status quo. And I know somebody's probably saying, do we need somebody to speak for us? Do we have to? I believe so. Everybody else does. How do you think the Asian people were able to get that Asian hate bill passed? They had somebody that was able to speak for them. They had political figures in place. It was current. It's easy when you have thinkers and intellectual figures and politicians and certain people who know certain things in place in order to pass these things and get these things passed for you, and have, it's easy to do that when you have certain things in place. So I say, as black people, who do we have? Who are the thinkers for us? Who are the intellectual figures for us? Who are the intelligent people who sit down and come up with ideas and thoughts and processes and community building things that we could put in place? Who are the people that we have? When things happen, as far as like in the politics of the government or the president and things of that sort, they have a speaker of the house, somebody who speaks for the house. Who is our speaker of our house? Who? Who represents us? Everybody else has a representative. And I'm not saying that they're well known and things of that sort. And a lot of times they're not going to be well known because they're not celebrities or major figures in the limelight. They do a lot of work behind the scenes. And sometimes I believe that's why we don't have anybody, is because a lot of this work is done behind the scenes. And a lot of us don't want to do the work behind the scenes because it's not seen. They can't see us. It don't look good if we got to be behind the camera and do the dirty work. We don't like that. We want to be seen. We don't want to do anything if it's not seen, or we don't get any credit or representation for it. And that's the sad truth about us. You got the Jesse Jackson and the Al Sharptons. That's who I was speaking on earlier. When things happen, they call them up and they get paid, and then they resolve the issue, quote unquote, but nothing materializes for the people. So who do we have? Obama. You see what Obama's doing now. Who do we have that can speak for us? I believe this is one of the steps that we need to build the community, is have some kind of public representation. somebody who speaks on our behalf. I believe this is one of the steps that we need, that can articulate what's going on in the black community, that can articulate the things that we need, that can articulate, the fatigue that we go through, that can articulate the steps and processes that's needed to mend the damage that is done between the black community and America. Like a liaison. That's what the black community needs. We need a speaker. We need somebody who represents us. Like I said, because now all we have is rappers and ball players. And like I said, I think that's done by design, because that's all they ever wanted us to be. Again, I think that's highly done by design, because that's all that they want us to be. That's the highest level of achievement that they say that black people can be, is a ball player or entertainer. So they don't have us in any light, or allow us. I'm not even going to say allow us to get in any light, but they only publicize or glorify, these things. So in our unconscious or subconscious, I should say, we believe that this is all that we could ever be, as an entertainer or a ball player. But who's our thinkers? Who's our intellectual beings? Who's our articulators? Who's our representators? Who's our government officials? This is what we need. Who represents us? Who represents us? Anyways, this is your favorite cousin Rich. Let me know what y'all think about this. I appreciate y'all for listening. Y'all be safe out there. Love and blessings.